We're going to welcome everybody in from Zoom, and we're going to turn together to page 24.
Shabbat Shalom, welcome, welcome, welcome from the Zoomiverse and beyond. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hashaveh, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Nibaruchu, L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Let's take a nice deep breath in and out.
At least.
It's always interesting when I speak to groups of students about why Shabbat matters to them. And in fact, I have some students here tonight who I've had that exact conversation with over the past few weeks. Maybe because their Devar Torah is about it. I don't know, in a couple weeks. They always give the same answer. It's always interesting. It's all about family. And though Shabbat is about holiness, it's about rest, it's about relaxation, often this idea of being around people you love, right? Because some of us are in Shabbat and we're not around family, but we do surround ourselves with community, whether it's community who are here in person or community virtually. In doing so, we find that we're held up by them. That Shabbat is a time to be together in a way that other people make us better because we are in their presence. And that's the goal for tonight. The goal for tonight, yes, is to pray. Yes, is to celebrate because we've got 2 students becoming B'nai Mitzvah tomorrow and a wedding couple who are about to be married in 2 days. But it's also about feeling that presence of others around you. COVID has conditioned us to be a little bit scared of the other, to be scared of community, even to be scared of visiting people in our own families. The goal of Shabbat is to lean into that fear, not to let it go, not to pretend it's not there, but instead to understand that even with the risks around us, being in community can still be powerful. It can be healing. It can be helpful. And so with that in mind, we're going to invite our 2 B'nai Mitzvah up to be joined by their families. So Jake and Ellie, we're going to invite you up with your families as together we turn to page 2 and 3 and we prepare to light our candles for Shabbat. And because we happen to have such a big community here, Ronnie, I'm wondering if you might be able to run outside and just tell Danny maybe we should open the doors. What do you think? Thank you.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives.
And so we're going to turn to page 5 as we move into the Kiddush. So,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereishit. Ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim.
Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'avim v'shavat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon Inchaltanu.
Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
Amen. Elochaim. You can take a little, yes. Yeah.
congratulations, guys. You guys are all to the seat. We're on page 20 as we join together with L'chadodi.
Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, rishai multiferet, melech chila, olecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabla, likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelecha, ki mekor haberachah, merosh mikedem mesucha, sof v'maaseh v'machshavat tchila, olecha dodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat, nekabela. Verse 5. Hit'oreri, kiporech, kumi ori, shir daveri, kivod Adonai, alayich nigla, olecha
dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat,
nekabela.
We rise facing the door.
Final verse. Mo'i v'shalom, ateret badla, gam besimcha u'betola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, olecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabela.
We remain standing as we turn to page 28 for the Baruch.
Barechu et Adonai ha'mevorach. Baruch Adonai, together, Baruch
Adonai,
ha'mevorach,
Hamevorach,
le'olam,
le'olam,
va'ed. Baruchu et Adonai, ha'mevorach. Baruchu et Adonai, ha'mevorach. Baruch Adonai ha'mevorach, le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai ha'mevorach, le'olam va'ed.
we're seated together, as we turn our attention to the screen, a special prayer, a meditation on this next prayer, actually. Roll into dark, roll into light.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to light. Go light,
Dark, roll into light.
go
Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ברבים.
Page 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי ויתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 41. Sing the song of men and women, join in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift of our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
כל מלכותך ראו בניך חוקי הים לפני משה ומרים זה לי ענו ואמרו זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני מלוך לעולם אדוני מלוך לעולם one more time man yai yai lai 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 la la yai lai 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 la 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 ya lai la 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 yai lai ya la la ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני קהל ישראל.
In a moment, we're going to turn to page 44 for Yismechu. Now, we don't often talk about this because we don't often do this prayer as much. We normally kind of choose between this and the prayer before, Hashkivenu. There's something about this message that is especially important every time that we think about Shabbat. There are 4 key verbs that Jewish tradition uses about Shabbat. Shamor, which means all the things you're not supposed to do on Shabbat. Zachor, which is all the additive things that you do on Shabbat ritually, like lighting the candles or blessing the wine. Kavod Shabbat, which is the reason that you might take out the nice tablecloth or wear nice clothes, because kavod in Hebrew means to honor. And then oneg, the idea of enjoyment. That Shabbat is supposed to be a time where you eat good food, you drink good wine, you tell good stories, you have fun. And joy and happiness and fun as the essence of Shabbat, one of the 4 key pillars, is something that we sometimes forget about. But we are supposed to lift our voice in joyous song. We are supposed to eat good food. We are supposed to have good company. And in doing so, we make truly the Shabbat a delight, which is, if we haven't done so, a missed opportunity. It's on the bottom of page 44.
ישמחו
במלכותך,
שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת מקדשי שבי שבת כולם ישביעו ויתענגו מטבח שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת מהשיר רצית בו וקידשת שבת חמדת ימי אותו קראת שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת כי זה עיקר למעשה ושומרי שבת וקורא יום נגד שבת.
I'll invite us to rise as we turn to page 46. Move into the silent Amidah first with this opening meditation, and then silent through page 62.
Adonai שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
So we take another few moments, even if we've moved on, to just taste this collective, prayerful exhale. Pray for peace.
עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. הוא עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. One more time. הוא עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. הוא עושה shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Hu say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We move in our service to page 253 as we have the opportunity to offer a Mishaberach, a prayer for those in healing. And that healing could be for body, mind, or soul. And it could be for a prayer for someone you don't even know. But as you sing, you have that opportunity to bring those vibes to those that need it. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. And as I look around the room, if you'd like to add those names out loud, please do so. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion, for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say amen as we focus on the names up on our screen. Mishaberach avotenu Mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say amen.
So Peter and Lori, I want to invite you up to the bima. And if you don't know Peter and Lori, they are about to formally tie the knot on Sunday of this week. So I'm going to invite us all to rise. Now, I intentionally said the words formally tie the knot because one of the funny things about being a rabbi who comes into a community relatively recently, this is only my 4th year here, is that when you meet people, you make certain assumptions about them. The two of you were always together, the two of you were always sitting together. And it took me, I confess, over a year before I learned that you hadn't, quote, formally tied the knot. Because the comfort that you have with one another, the ease at which you are together, the way you communicate, the way you look at one another, there's been an identity piece to you as a couple that far precedes today. That real bond that you find with married couples was something that I saw from the beginning when I met the two of you. You are an extraordinary couple, in part because the two of you put together is the Uber Jew. You embody so much of the values of this place and of the religion. Sometimes both of you have it, sometimes one of you specializes. But between the two of you, you have spiritual connection. Between the two of you, you have a dedication to justice. Between the two of you, you have a love of learning. Between the two of you, you have a dedication to family. And especially because it is the two of you, you have a real connection to that community that I spoke about at the beginning. When I spoke, especially to you, Peter, about what this day, what tonight meant to you, being able to be surrounded by this, by community that you know so well, and community that is yours just by nature of you being part of this synagogue, was so important to you. Because you understand that as important as your love is, if you just share it with each other, or you just shared it with your family, it would not be enough. For the two of you, your light shines so brightly that you want it to radiate out into the universe. And you want to be held and to hold those who love you. And so I'm going to offer you one blessing, and then I'm going to call Cantor Greenberg up, who's officiating for you on Sunday, to offer another. Misha Berach Avotinu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov Sar Rivka Rachav Leah Hu Yivarech et Hechatan v'Hakala Asher Karvu Yikansu Lechupa Ba'avor She'alu Lichvod HaMakom Ulichvod HaTorah Ulichvod HaShabbat. May the God who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah bless the two of you who are soon to be joined in marriage. May the Kadosh Baruch Hu help you build a home harboring love and harmony, peace and companionship as you've already begun. May your life together be illumined by your light, and may you be ever faithful to the finest within yourselves, within each other, and within our sacred tradition, as we say, Amen.
Amen.
And if Cantor Greenberg will come up, we're going to offer you the oldest blessing that exists in our tradition, the Priestly Benediction.
This is an all play, so you can rise your hands and really just let them feel your warmth, and you can just receive it. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and protect you.
Yar Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May God cause God's light to shine upon you and give you grace.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God always smile upon you and grant you a life of wholeness and peace.
Can you hear Ratzon? May it be God's will, and let us all say,
Amen.
Mazal Tov.
Mazel tov. ... All right, we can be seated. Shabbat Shalom. I want us to ask a question about this week's Torah portion that I think is fitting for the time that we are in right now. The question that I want to ask is, did the Jewish people, right, did Jacob's sons, who we find at the end of the book of Genesis, are there in Egypt making a home, did they know what was going to happen? Did they know that they were going to be enslaved in the very first and second chapters of the next book, of the book of Exodus? Now, it's an interesting question because it actually isn't totally clear. There's a moment, just to kind of back up, to remind ourselves, we're telling the story of Joseph and his brothers, which spans 4 different Torah portions. And there's a moment in the Torah portion last week that leads me to believe that potentially they did. So just to remind you about the story, Joseph is one of 12 sons of Jacob, and he's kind of a jerk to his brothers. He's also the favorite. He's a brat, and he gets thrown into a pit and sold into slavery and sent off to Egypt. While he's in Egypt, because he can interpret dreams, he rises to become the second most powerful person in Egypt. And in doing so, he becomes the right-hand man of Pharaoh. Now, one of his jobs as the vizier, as the right-hand man of Pharaoh, is to dole out the food during a famine, and that's when he meets his brothers again. The brothers come to him and ask him for food because they don't have enough to feed themselves in the land of Israel. And after playing some tricks on his brothers, he sends them home and says, "Don't come back until you've brought your youngest brother Benjamin," which they do. And Joseph frames Benjamin as a kind of test to them, to get them to confess exactly who they are and what Benjamin means to their father Jacob. And at the beginning of last week's Torah portion, which is called Parshat Vayigash, Jacob, who has not yet revealed himself to these brothers, comes forward. And he says, I am Joseph, is my father still alive? Now, the brothers can't believe their eyes. And they say to Joseph, basically, we're so sorry. We didn't realize it was you, and we realize we should never have done what we did, throwing you into the pit. And Joseph says, basically, I'm not mad at you. And then he says something really important. He says it was all part of God's plan. God intended for this to happen. Now, it's not clear what he means by that. Maybe he's got such faith. Maybe he's the kind of person that when a bad thing happens, he says, you know what, it's all for good. There are beliefs out there. Beliefs like, why do bad things happen to good people? Because we are actually just looking at the back end of a weaving project with all the knots and all the pulls and all the strings that are undone. And if you were to turn that tapestry over, you were to turn that weaving project over, you would see a beautiful picture. But I think there's something else there. Earlier in the Torah, Abraham is told, and Abraham is his great-grandfather, Abraham is told by God, one day your people will enter into Egypt. They will be slaves for 400 years, and with a mighty hand I will take them out of Egypt. And in doing so, I have to imagine that God set into motion, when he told Abraham that, one of the foundational stories of that family. I can't imagine that Abraham wouldn't have sat Isaac down and said, just know that if you ever enter into Egypt, there's a chance you're never coming back for 400 years. I have to imagine that he then told that to his son Jacob, who probably had told that, must have been in their family, to Joseph and to his brothers. They must have realized as they were settling down in Egypt, potentially, that they were doomed to stay there for generations. That Joseph's plea that his bones would one day make it to to Israel so he could be buried with his ancestors was probably a dream that would never be fulfilled. 400 years is a long time to wait to bring bones out of Egypt. Now, how does that have anything to do with today? Because I've been reflecting a little bit on where we were 2 years ago. And I want to ask you, if you knew what the next 2 years were going to be, would that have affected the way that you did December 2019? Would that have affected the way that you did January of 2020? I went on a trip to Amsterdam with even some people in this room during February of 2020. The middle of February. What? It was the middle of February. It was toward the end, actually, yeah. If I had realized what exactly was happening, what was going to happen, would that have changed things? Throughout Jewish history, that question of if you knew, would you change anything, is the optimal question. Because at the end of the day, Jews have a tremendous amount, kind of as a people, of a generalized anxiety about them that I imagine that the brothers probably did in Egypt too. If you feel like the other shoe is going to drop, then you never want to put the first shoe down in the first place. And it's a really scary prospect to be living in the world thinking that something bad is going to happen to you. But I imagine the brothers did. And I imagine because of the 2 years that we've been living through, every single one of us is feeling the same way as well. I'm not going to lie. My general anxiety, my general temperature has gone up over the past 2 weeks. Raise your hand if yours has too. And that's not a bad thing to feel that way, right? We want that anxiety because that anxiety is going to help us to stay safer. It's going to help us potentially keep masks on when we don't want to put masks on. It's going to help us to socially distance when we don't want to socially distance. It's going to help us to make smart choices. If we never felt anxious, we would live our life recklessly. But the truth is, we don't know what the future will hold. And although we can kind of see a sort of prophecy in the way that the brothers grew up with that prophecy settling in Egypt, imagine what would have happened if they lived their lives so scared of when the slavery was going to begin with them that they never ended up feeling like they could make a home. It was a long time, by the way, between Joseph and Pharaoh. We're talking over 100 years. It takes that long before the Jews can become a great and populous nation so that Pharaoh can be scared of them in the first place. Which means that if they lived that long, so scared of what was going to happen, births would never happen. Love would never happen. Joy would never happen. There's a very famous story that basically boils down to a strange phenomenon in the first Torah portion of next week, where we're told basically that Moses' mother and father, Amram that's the name I was trying to find, that Amram and Yocheved got married and had a son, and that son's name was Moses. The only problem was that Yocheved and Amram actually had 2 other kids, right? They had an older brother, Aaron, and an older sister, Miriam. And so the rabbis asked the question, well, why would they use that weird phrase that they kind of got together after having probably been together for so long because they had these other kids? The answer was that Amram basically divorced his wife when he found out about the slavery and when he found out about the babies being thrown into the Nile, because he couldn't live in a world where this was going to be the case. He had such anxiety about what that future would bring that he decided to blow up his family over it. And we're told that it took little girl Miriam, who is considered kind of a prophetess among her own, to say to her dad, look, Pharaoh hasn't won yet, but if you completely destroy your life, if you leave mom over this, if you abandon us because you don't want to see what could happen if you potentially have another child, then Pharaoh actually has won. You cannot implode this family over your fear. And he realizes it, and he takes Yocheved back, and the 2 of them knew each other, and then Moses was born. That feeling that you sometimes want to just throw it out. You sometimes want to give up. You sometimes never want to put on shoes again and just watch Netflix for your whole entire life is a feeling that I bet every single one of us have had at some point. But that's actually not what the Israelites did when they were in Egypt during Joseph's time and for the many, many years afterwards. The Jews couldn't have become a great and populous nation if they hadn't kept living their lives. Yes, they lived their lives with one eye toward who might be behind them. Yes, they lived their lives a little bit scared of what the future was going to hold. And yes, they probably tried to put things in place to protect themselves throughout the course of that process. But they lived. They lived safely, but they lived. I've talked to too many people over the past couple weeks who are ready to just shut it all down again, who are ready to go back into hiding, who are ready to say that despite all that we've learned, all that science has taught us, all the safety measures that are in place, that the world just is too scary again. And I want to crawl back into bed too sometimes. I want to hide inside my shell. I have that anxiety hanging over my head too. But the key is to take measured risks and to understand that despite the fact that we too might feel that prophetic voice in our ears saying things are going to kind of get bad. The days are going to be a little bit dark over these next little while. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can abandon them either. It doesn't mean that we can blow them up. It doesn't mean that we can't put those shoes back on. So we have to take a lesson from our ancestors, that despite the darkness that might seem to be around us, despite the anxiety that might be growing, the pit that might be in our stomachs, we have to live our lives. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn to Aleinu as Together We Rise, page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We remain standing as we think of those that we've loved and who we've lost. This Shabbat, we recall the following individuals: Charlotte Abelson, Tema Dorman Ackerman, Lillian Abrams, Francis Adelman, Israel Alter, Ida Becker, Abe Billis, Malcolm Cole, Daniel Davidow, Eleanor Dobro, Shirley Fink, Bernard Fisher, Gladys Fisher, Bella Friedman, Hyman Glantz, Linda Glasser, Francis Glick, Harry Samuel Goldman, Arnold Goldsmith, Bertha Haas, Harry Hertzberg, Max Hirsch, Herbert Holtzman, Esther Kimmel, Leonora Kirshner, Gerald Klein, Carol Kramer, Claire Kurland, Eddie Levy, Billy Levine, Alonzo Lowenstein, Harry Mackler, Sidney Morantz, Benjamin Mabey, Leon Milden, Marie Claire Miller, Al Moses, Catherine Moyer, Stanley Perlmutter, Rabbi Elahu Chagrin, Stanley Shapiro, Dora Soberman, Rose Stein, Sally Strumpf, Peter David Taffet, Robert Weiss, Shirley Weiss, and Irvin Yaffe. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning: Keith Taylor, cousin of Irene Sherman; Beverly Sakharov, aunt of Jennifer Cohen; Margaret Penny, aunt of Stephen Penny; and Jerry Hoffman, father of Linda Sterling. In addition, I'll invite those to say names of people that you're thinking of that either were not on this yard site list, but you are observing a yard site, or who you are in your 1-year period of mourning for. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemem rabam. V'yamad divrach uretei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayachon uv'yom echon uv'chayetecho Beit Yisrael. V'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabam avarach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushpatata v'nechamata, damiram b'yama v'imru amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al Yisrael v'imru amen. Ose shalom b'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. So before we move into our closing song, a few announcements. The first is, if you are here, any of you, are welcome to join us in the back as we join together in a festive celebration of the love of Lori and Peter. And so we hope that you'll join us.
A true oneg.
A true oneg, a true joy. And so please head into the back if you feel comfortable. We put it in the back there. That way, if you don't want to stay, you can head out and do whatever you feel is the most safe. So in addition to that, tomorrow morning, our Torah study is at 8:30. We have a Tat Shabbat at 9 a.m. And then 2 B'nai Mitzvah. Jake will become Bar Mitzvah at 9:30, Ellie at 11:30. And we say congratulations to the two of you, and we can't wait to celebrate with you. Look, we've got a lot of stuff happening after the break. There's really not that much before the break, but I want to give one plug that I really could use your help with. It is Christmas Eve and Christmas next week, and the week afterwards, it is New Year's Eve and New Year's Day on Friday night and Saturday morning, respectively, of those 2 weeks. Which means we're going to have services because it's always Shabbat, and we could use some help in making a minyan. And so services are at 6:30 on Friday night, 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. If you have the ability to help us, we've got a sign-up sheet that we've posted on Facebook and that we sent out to the community as part of our e-Garret. But we really just want to make sure that we have at least 10 people. They don't all have to be here. Like we could have 6 here and 4 online. But just to make sure that we've got a subset of our community here and that we make a minyan. And so if you can help us, please sign up or please tell me. You can even email me and I'll add you to the list. So thank you very much. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We also have our morning service at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So hopefully you can join us for that as well if you are not going to be joining us for the 2 B'nai Mitzvah. And that's with Ronnie Pressman in the chapel. So
We got you covered, more or less.
yes.
That's the idea. So we're going to end our tefillah with a different kind of we got you covered, our tradition's invitation to notice that mystery's got us covered, got us taken care.
And thank you to our musicians as well.
Oh, so great. We're going to end with the last words of the Adonolam text, and it should be up here, possibly.
וכדרוכי בית ישן ועירה מאיר מרוחי יביאתי אדוני לי ולא יירא Adonai li v'lo ira.
Join us.
Bi'ado avkiruchi be'et ishan v'ya'ira Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
shalom. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Make sure to introduce yourself to someone new, and if you feel comfortable, grab a snack in the back.